Foundations of the alliance. While the idea of unified defense and shared prosperity had circulated for decades, the first concrete steps toward forming the alliance took shape in 3227. Records from this period indicate that multiple frontier colonies, each struggling with insufficient resources and frequent raids, began exchanging messages proposing a formal agreement for mutual support. Early meetings involved only a handful of systems, but quickly expanded as word spread of potential benefits, including joint security patrols and collective bargaining for trade contracts. A crucial milestone occurred in 3242 when the leaders of 7 independent worlds convened to draft a preliminary charter. During this gathering, representatives reached consensus on fundamental principles. Each system would retain autonomy over its internal affairs, but agree to share defensive responsibilities and adhere to common guidelines for dispute resolution. Although the alliance at this stage was little more than a loose confederation, it nonetheless set important precedents for the governance framework that would follow. By 3255, the loose affiliation had grown into a more structured organization. Systems that once resisted any form of centralized authority began to see tangible benefits of cooperation, especially in repelling hostile incursions along their trade routes. A summit in 3260 ratified these ideas into the first comprehensive treaty, laying out clear protocols for collective security and resource management. This documented agreement served as the bedrock for a union that would, over time, attract new members and evolve into the modern alliance, an entity grounded in the principle that strength and prosperity flourish when diverse worlds unite under a shared vision. The gathering of leaders. In a carefully orchestrated effort to unite systems that had long acted in isolation, prominent representatives from across various regions arrived at a neutral station situated near a remote star. The location was selected for its strategic distance from any major power and for the privacy it afforded. Over the course of several days, the station's once quiet corridors transformed into spaces of intense discussion and fervent negotiation. Diplomats, military officials, and economic strategists brought with them the weight of their people's concerns and aspirations, each determined to secure a balance between defending local interests and achieving interstellar unity. Persuading so many different worlds to align under a single cause proved challenging. The delegates frequently clashed on matters of resource distribution and commercial regulations, reflecting the divergent economic conditions within their home systems. Others focused on defense protocols, fearing that the collective sharing of naval forces might erode each system's autonomy or expose them to conflicts not of their own making. At times, debates grew so heated that sessions had to be adjourned to allow tempers to cool, underscoring the magnitude of what was at stake. Despite these strains, a sense of necessity drove the participants to persevere. Proposals evolved through compromise, and seemingly intractable differences gradually shrank in the face of common threats beyond any single system's ability to confront. At last, the group drafted a framework that established shared administrative bodies to oversee trade, defense, and diplomacy, while also allowing each member a measure of self-governance. Upon returning to their home systems, these leaders carried with them a new vision for collaborative progress, one that would soon crystallize into a formal alliance, bound not by conquest or coercion, but by a collective dedication to mutual protection and prosperity. Structure and governance. The alliance's governing framework was shaped by the aim of preserving each member world's individuality, while enabling a cohesive system of administration. At the center of this structure sits a council composed of representatives from all participating systems, each elected or appointed according to the traditions of their own constituency. These delegates convene at regular intervals to pass legislation, approve budgets, and negotiate diplomatic or trade matters that affect the Union as a whole. Discussions often require delicate balancing acts, as each representative must defend local interests without undermining broader interstellar objectives. Supporting this central council is a network of specialized agencies charged with handling specific areas of governance, including defense strategy, economic oversight, and the regulation of vital resources. The individuals staffing these agencies are selected through a combination of expertise and equitable distribution among member systems, ensuring that no single faction holds disproportionate sway. This arrangement helps maintain transparency and inclusivity, both essential for uniting societies that vary widely in history, culture, and technological advancement. To address issues swiftly between scheduled council sessions, an executive body exists with the authority to enact interim measures, particularly in emergencies. Its powers, however, remain carefully constrained by the collective will of the council, reflecting the founding principle that centralized control should never undermine the independence of individual worlds. Thus, while the executive can rapidly deploy resources during crises, its actions are routinely reviewed to confirm they comply with the alliance's guiding policies and legal framework. Over time, the system has shown an ability to adapt, driven by the establishment of regular performance audits and public forums where citizens can voice their concerns. In response, incremental reforms have been introduced to address shifting economic realities, security threats, or technological changes. Though the structure and governance of the alliance can seem complex, it has endured by balancing local autonomy with an overarching sense of unity, fostering a climate where even the most distant worlds can find a voice and a measure of safety under the shared banner of mutual progress. Economics and trade. The alliance's economic network was constructed with an emphasis on fair exchange and collective advancement. Each member system brought its own unique set of resources, from agricultural staples and rare minerals to high technology components and industrial machinery. Recognizing that no single territory could be fully self-sufficient, trade agreements were established to ensure a steady flow of commodities and services across the entire Union. Merchant fleets traversed predefined routes that linked core industrial worlds to distant outposts, creating a circulation of goods that not only sustained daily life, but also promoted technological collaboration among regions with varying levels of development. In an effort to maintain balanced growth, regulatory bodies monitored the pricing and distribution of key commodities, especially those critical for infrastructure and defense. Decisions regarding tariffs, subsidies, and import quotas were based on extensive market analyses, intended to prevent monopolies from dominating essential sectors. Local administrators retained significant control over their own economies while agreeing to abide by overarching rules that encouraged transparency and minimized exploitative practices. Over time, a stable monetary system emerged, supported by financial institutions that provided lines of credit and insurance for long-haul traders. This framework allowed the alliance to weather economic fluctuations and maintain continuous support for frontier expansion. Even as external pressures shifted, the foundational principle of mutually beneficial trade remained a cornerstone of the alliance's collective prosperity. Military organization and strategy. The foundations of the alliance's military structure date back to the year 3042, when recurring border skirmishes in the outer colonies made it clear that decentralized militias could not adequately safeguard shared trade routes. In response, the Central Council ratified the Interstellar Defense Act, mandating the formation of a unified command capable of coordinating fleet deployments, surveillance, and rapid response operations across multiple star systems. Over the ensuing decades, a dedicated framework emerged that combined local defense units with specialized interstellar task forces. By 3267, standardized training programs and joint exercises had significantly elevated combat readiness, resulting in the establishment of the First Alliance Navy. This entity served as a strategic reserve, maintaining cruisers, corvettes, and support vessels designed to respond swiftly to crises ranging from piracy to large-scale incursions. Through shared intelligence channels, each member system's forces maintained real-time awareness of emerging threats, allowing for coordinated countermeasures, even when hundreds of light years separated key strongholds. One pivotal milestone occurred in 3301, when the Alliance enacted the Frontier Security Initiative, a sweeping policy that reallocated funds toward the development of state-of-the-art weaponry and defensive platforms. Newly commissioned ships were equipped with advanced sensor arrays and improved power distribution networks, enabling them to operate more effectively in hostile environments. Technological innovations gleaned from research agreements, including some derived from ancient constructs uncovered in distant sectors, were integrated into naval designs, enhancing both maneuverability and firepower. These upgrades, coupled with a reliable supply chain for munitions, consolidated the alliance's position as a formidable power, prepared to safeguard its expanding domains while upholding the principle that collaboration and mutual defense remained the ultimate pillars of interstellar security. Relations with the Federation. Ties between the Alliance and the Federation have evolved through a pattern of guarded cooperation and periodic rivalries. The Federation's long-established influence dates back to the mid-25th century, when it began consolidating power across a network of core systems. By 3200, its sphere of authority was unrivaled, leading many emerging powers to engage cautiously, aware of the Federation's far-reaching economic and military capacities. Early interactions remained diplomatic yet distant, with neither side fully trusting the other's intentions. A more tangible bond formed in 3255 when trade emissaries from the Alliance negotiated the first major commerce treaty, granting Alliance-flagged ships access to key Federation-controlled routes. This accord, ratified under the Commerce Expansion Agreement, opened new markets for agricultural exports and mining ventures, spurring an uptick in revenue for member systems seeking to bolster their fledgling infrastructures. Despite initial hesitations, the Federation's Council recognized the benefits of tapping into previously underutilized resources, making the deal mutually advantageous. Growing interdependence did not, however, eliminate friction. In 3272, a dispute over tariffs on refined metals escalated into a minor trade crisis. Several Federation-aligned corporate entities imposed levies that Alliance representatives deemed exploitative. While tensions briefly threatened to dissolve the partnership, a renegotiation effort in 3273 succeeded in diffusing hostilities. An oversight committee was established to enforce fair pricing standards, reducing the risk of future economic disputes spiraling into broader conflicts. Diplomatic ties were tested once again in 3301, following a series of incidents involving unauthorized patrols crossing shared borders. Suspicions on both sides led to public outcry, prompting high-level talks that stressed the importance of transparent communication and defined clearer protocols for border operations. Though strains persisted, the resolution reaffirmed both powers' commitment to maintaining a balanced relationship. Economic pragmatism continued to outweigh political differences, sustaining an uneasy but enduring association in which mutual cooperation has proven essential for stability in the ever-shifting expanse of interstellar affairs. Relations with the Empire. The earliest records of engagement between the Alliance and the Empire date back to 3238, when an expeditionary convoy from the Alliance crossed paths with Imperial patrols near the outer fringes of contested territories. Initial interactions remained cautious, influenced by the Empire's hierarchical traditions and the Alliance's commitment to decentralized governance. Although no formal hostilities broke out at the time, both sides preferred to maintain limited contact, wary of their differing political ideologies. Tensions briefly escalated in 3265 following a series of border incidents in which merchant vessels claimed to have been detained and searched without cause. The Empire insisted these actions were part of routine security measures, while Alliance representatives protested what they considered infringements on free navigation. Diplomatic envoys met later that year to prevent the disputes from spiraling into open conflict. Though no formal treaty was signed, an understanding was reached to enhance communication channels and clarify protocols for border inspections. A significant turning point came in 3291, when the Empire sought to secure new trade routes for its burgeoning luxury goods market. Recognizing that the Alliance controlled several resource-rich systems vital to those routes, the Imperial Senate approved a series of emissaries tasked with negotiating mutual trade benefits. The resulting framework, often referred to informally as the Silver Accord, outlined tariffs, customs procedures, and designated safe passages for merchants from both powers. While it did not entirely dispel deeper ideological differences, the accord led to a period of relative stability and increased economic exchange. Despite these advances, sporadic controversies continued to test the relationship. In 3303, allegations surfaced that certain alliance systems were supporting groups opposed to the empire's centralized authority. Imperial officials demanded an investigation, prompting a joint fact finding mission that ultimately uncovered no definitive proof of such backing. The incident nonetheless fueled suspicion, reminding both parties that mutual understanding remained delicate. Through these cycles of negotiation, tension, and guarded cooperation, the Alliance and the Empire have sustained an uneasy equilibrium, each recognizing that their shared interests in trade and regional stability often outweigh their political and cultural divides. The Thargoid factor. Officially documented encounters with the Thargoids began circulating as early as 31-125, though unconfirmed reports suggest sightings may have occurred decades prior. In those initial accounts, isolated survey teams recorded unexplained ship signatures that appeared abruptly and vanished just as quickly, leaving behind only fragmented sensor data. At the time, these sightings were often dismissed as anomalies or sensor malfunctions, partly because there was little collective framework for understanding what a genuine extraterrestrial incursion might entail. Interest in these elusive signals grew steadily through the mid-3200s. In 3257, the Alliance funded a comprehensive research program to study the occurrences, consolidating data from remote outposts. Investigators discovered faint energy signatures that hinted at sophisticated propulsion systems unmatched by current human engineering. Debriefings of pilots who survived encounters consistently detailed vessels that performed maneuvers far beyond conventional flight envelopes, suggesting a level of technological advancement that demanded cautious scrutiny. Though the results were inconclusive, growing evidence indicated that these contacts were neither rare nor random. The first overt signs of hostility appeared in 3301, when several Alliance freighters along fringe routes failed to return from routine assignments. Recovery missions found debris fields containing unusual chemical residues and hull damage incompatible with known weapons. Rumors of alien interference spread quickly, prompting the Alliance Council to issue a high-level alert. In the months that followed, reconnaissance patrols reported a pattern of intermittent but increasingly organized attacks on vessels that strayed into specific regions of deep space. While some insisted on a purely defensive posture until intentions could be determined, others urged direct confrontation to protect strategic corridors. By 3303, the Alliance had invested heavily in anti-Xeno research, adapting ship designs to better withstand the advanced armaments believed to be in use by these unidentified forces. Cooperative efforts with other interstellar powers briefly set aside political frictions, as each recognized the broader threat posed by a species that had yet to communicate its objectives. Investigative teams analyzed fragments of recovered technology, learning that Thargoid engineering employed unusual materials and power sources, potentially centuries ahead of anything humans had mastered. Despite extensive diplomatic outreach attempts, no formal channels of dialogue were ever established, leaving motives a matter of speculation among the Union's leading scientific and military minds. Today, the Thargoids remain both a source of fear and fascination, emblematic of an encounter with the unknown that challenges the Alliance's collective assumptions about what lies beyond its expanding frontier. Vigilance is maintained in sectors where sightings persist, and research into potential methods of peaceful contact continues in parallel with ongoing defensive efforts. Yet, the deeper questions, why the Thargoids appear in certain regions, whether they possess centralized leadership, or how they perceive humanity, remain unresolved. As the years progress, the Thargoid factor continues to shape military planning, diplomatic relations, and scientific endeavors across the Alliance's territory. Guardian connections. Evidence of an ancient civilization known as the Guardians first surfaced in the year 3269 when an exploratory mission to a remote system detected unusual energy signatures emanating from derelict structures. Upon closer inspection, the survey team confirmed that these were not natural formations, but the remnants of an advanced society believed to have flourished tens of thousands of years prior. Subsequent expeditions throughout the 3270s uncovered additional sites, each yielding more relics and data fragments that hinted at the Guardians' formidable grasp of astrophysics, energy manipulation, and architectural engineering. In 32 and 84, the Alliance established a dedicated research consortium to study the expanding collection of Guardian artifacts. Detailed scans of recovered relics revealed circuitry composed of materials unknown to conventional science, prompting a wave of breakthroughs in power storage and shield harmonics. Reports from these research stations indicated that a single fragment of Guardian tech had the potential to revolutionize propulsion systems if the Alliance could decipher its underlying principles. Despite the promise, investigators faced complex challenges. Guardian inscriptions proved exceptionally difficult to decode, and much of the technology had degraded over millennia, leaving significant gaps in the data record. A notable milestone occurred in 3302, when joint expeditions combined resources to retrofit one of the Alliance's reconnaissance vessels with reverse-engineered components derived from partially understood Guardian schematics. Although this prototype saw limited deployment, its field performance validated the feasibility of integrating ancient insights with modern shipbuilding. Interest in Guardian research surged, leading to collaborative efforts aimed at exploring larger relic sites, rumored to exist beyond the farthest settled regions. Today, while many secrets of the Guardians remain locked behind language barriers and partially dismantled artifacts, the progress made thus far continues to shape the Alliance's view of technology, exploration, and the profound mysteries that lie beyond the familiar frontiers. Influence of megacorporations. The presence of megacorporations within the Alliance has grown significantly since the late 3200s, when a wave of private enterprises recognized the profitability of interstellar commerce on a vast scale. In 3283, representatives from several large corporate entities successfully lobbied for relaxed trade regulations, arguing that their investments would accelerate economic development across newly incorporated systems. This move prompted rapid expansion, particularly in regions abundant with natural resources, where corporate-funded expeditions established mining operations and manufacturing hubs. As profits soared, these corporations began exerting increasing sway over local councils. Financial statements from 3290 revealed that nearly one-third of all public infrastructure projects were underwritten by just a handful of major conglomerates. In many cases, these mega corporations negotiated exclusive rights to manage transportation networks, energy distribution, or terraforming initiatives, allowing them to shape long-term economic strategies to their benefit. Though such partnerships often delivered tangible improvements, like upgrades in freight capacity or advances in terraforming methods, they also raised concerns about undue corporate influence on policymaking. By 3301, disputes over corporate dominance had become a recurring topic in high-level alliance assemblies. Smaller systems, reliant on private funding for critical infrastructure, complained of skewed power balances that left local voices overshadowed by profit-driven agendas. Investigative committees formed that same year uncovered evidence of corporate-backed lobbying efforts, including campaign contributions to key council members and restrictive contracts designed to reduce market competition. In response, the Alliance instituted additional oversight mechanisms, mandating more rigorous disclosures of financial relationships and granting independent auditors the authority to review large-scale project agreements. Despite these measures, corporations continue to wield substantial influence, particularly in sectors tied to advanced technology and spacefaring industries. Recent data from 3303 shows that private enterprise accounts for over half of the Alliance's military supply chain, offering cutting-edge weaponry and ship components. While this arrangement has ensured a steady flow of vital resources, it also underscores the delicate interplay between corporate ambitions and the broader objectives of a decentralized union. Efforts to maintain transparency persist, yet the question remains whether the Alliance can preserve its founding values of equitable governance while relying so heavily on the capital and innovation that megacorporations provide. Internal challenges and conflicts. From the alliance's earliest years, the diversity of its member systems presented a complex web of competing interests. While many worlds valued the shared protection and economic benefits of unity, local governments often resisted policies perceived as external mandates. As early as 3245, archival records show protests erupting in several agricultural colonies, where farmers claimed newly introduced trade regulations favored industrialized worlds. These disagreements highlighted the tension between centralized policy and regional autonomy, an issue that would persist for centuries. In 3278, the Council commissioned an independent investigation into allegations of corruption among key officials. The inquiry revealed irregularities in the awarding of construction and mining contracts, implicating several representatives in kickback schemes and the misappropriation of public funds. Although the scandal prompted reforms, including stricter financial oversight measures, it also fueled distrust among smaller systems, which feared that larger worlds wielded outsized influence within the alliance's decision-making processes. The year 3291 brought a renewed wave of discord when a faction of frontier settlers threatened to withdraw their support for interstellar defense initiatives. These settlers believed that the remote outposts were overlooked by central authorities and that the bulk of military resources went to more populous systems. A temporary compromise was reached through an addendum to the Defense Funding Act, earmarking resources for improved station fortifications in frontier territories. However, discontent lingered, reminding the alliance that the balance between collective security and equitable resource distribution remained delicate. Another flashpoint emerged in 3303 when a cluster of industrial worlds began protesting taxation measures meant to finance shared infrastructure projects. Corporate lobbyists argued that the burden fell disproportionately on manufacturing hubs, stifling innovation and economic growth. Pressure from these interests led to a series of heated council sessions, culminating in a revised tax schedule that attempted to account for varying levels of economic output across member systems. Though the crisis subsided, the episode underscored the alliance's ongoing challenge of crafting policies that satisfy both the wealthier core and the still developing regions seeking a fair share of benefits. Through these episodes, the alliance has repeatedly demonstrated an ability to adapt by implementing incremental changes and new regulatory frameworks. Even so, the undercurrent of localized grievances and concerns over unequal representation continues to shape political debates. The durability of the Union ultimately depends on its capacity to acknowledge and address these internal tensions, ensuring that the foundational ethos of cooperation remains more compelling than the forces pulling its member systems apart. Cultural mosaic and shared identity. The Alliance's reputation as a gathering of diverse systems began to solidify around 3250, when migratory patterns led settlers from vastly different backgrounds to occupy adjacent territories. Early council records from that period describe instances in which newly arrived groups introduced unfamiliar customs, languages, and spiritual practices. Many delegates saw this mix of perspectives as a potential source of discord, yet it also presented an opportunity to build bridges between communities that had never before interacted. In 3267, a formal cultural council was established to promote awareness of the varied traditions within the alliance, organizing festivals that showcased art, music, and cuisine from across member worlds. By 3285, these efforts had evolved into the Alliance Cultural Exchange Program, which sent academic delegations and performance troops to distant outposts, carrying a message of unity through shared experience. Historical archives detail how this initiative reduced tensions in frontier regions, where new settlers and long-standing populations often struggled to find common ground. Through these exchanges, even far-flung colonies began to feel a sense of connection to worlds they might otherwise have known only through trade agreements and official decrees. A turning point arrived in 3298, when the Council ratified a universal education guideline that encouraged younger generations to learn about the foundational principles uniting their systems. Although some member worlds initially resisted what they viewed as outside interference in local schooling, many found that exposure to different viewpoints actually deepened their appreciation for their own cultural heritage. As the years passed, this blend of local autonomy and interstellar collaboration became a defining hallmark of the alliance, ensuring that while each system retained its distinctive voice, they also contributed to a shared identity that could transcend distance and political boundaries. Frontier expansion and exploration. The collective push toward uncharted regions grew out of necessity and ambition, with records indicating that the first organized expeditions took shape in 3260. At that time, growing populations in core systems and the discovery of scarce resources on the fringes drove the Alliance Council to fund survey missions into distant star clusters. Although these endeavors encountered treacherous stellar phenomena and navigational hazards, the initial successes inspired further backing, leading to a continuous flow of volunteers eager to map the unknown and claim new territories. The establishment of the Frontier Commission in 3274 marked a significant milestone. Tasked with coordinating explorers, colonists, and scientific teams, this body managed everything from route planning to planetary assessment. By 3285, its archiving of navigational data allowed a wider range of pilots and research vessels to reach remote sectors more efficiently. Dozens of outposts set up on worlds deemed suitable for habitation soon began delivering valuable findings in geology, biology, and atmospheric science. Meanwhile, trade convoys transporting essential supplies ensured that these isolated stations could develop beyond mere waypoints, eventually blooming into self-sustaining communities. Reports from the late 3290s detail the introduction of enhanced scanning technology and modular station designs, both of which accelerated colonization efforts. Improved scanners shortened survey times dramatically, enabling teams to explore potential colony sites with greater precision. Newly built orbital platforms offered flexible modules for agriculture, manufacturing, and habitation, making it easier to establish footholds even in harsh environments. While these advancements carried risks, accidents involving unfamiliar pathogens or sudden geological events were not uncommon. They also fueled excitement throughout the Alliance as more systems opened their doors to interstellar travelers. By 3303, the Council was receiving frequent petitions from small colonial ventures seeking representation, an indication that these distant reaches were rapidly weaving themselves into the fabric of the greater Union. The future of the Alliance. In the wake of significant territorial gains made between 3303 and 3305, the Alliance finds itself at a pivotal juncture, poised to influence developments on an interstellar scale. Debates within the Central Council highlight an array of possible paths, from intensifying cooperation with other major powers to expanding deeper into uncharted regions. The push for further exploration accelerated after 3306, when new data streams from frontier stations indicated the presence of additional resource-rich systems beyond surveyed borders. Advocates of proactive expansion argue that continued growth will bolster security and ensure economic stability for future generations. Counterbalancing this ambition are concerns about resource allocation and political strain. Some smaller systems feel overshadowed by the steadily growing membership roster, fearing that their unique needs will be overshadowed as the Alliance extends its reach. In 3307, a coalition of frontier governors formally requested a revised charter that grants them greater autonomy in local governance. Their petition remains under review, fueling discussions about whether the Alliance can maintain unity while permitting broader latitude for individual systems. Technological progress adds another layer of complexity. Ongoing studies of alien artifacts uncovered after 3303 have led to breakthroughs in propulsion systems and communication methods that could redefine the logistical framework of the entire Union. While these innovations hold great promise, they also raise questions about defense and ethical oversight. Military advisors are calling for enhanced security protocols, particularly near zones where advanced research is underway, to ensure that no hostile forces exploit these emergent technologies. Looking ahead, the Alliance faces the challenge of reconciling its decentralized ethos with the expanding responsibilities that come from governing a rapidly growing territory. Many veterans of the original settlement efforts believe that preserving the alliance's founding values, respect for local governance, open trade, and common defense, remains essential to retaining the loyalty of distant outposts. At the same time, new generations of council delegates champion stronger centralized coordination, convinced that the Union's survival hinges on cohesive leadership and the proactive management of emerging threats. Whichever course gains traction, the Alliance's choices in the coming years will likely set the tone for interstellar relations and shape the lives of countless citizens seeking opportunity and security among the stars.